Today's webinar is about a simple but quite underrated lever for us in performance marketing, especially Google Ads. It's called consent opt-in rates, because better opt-ins on your cookie banner directly improve the quality of conversion data in Google Ads Analytics, which means ultimately that you have better optimization, you have smarter bid strategies, you have at the end more revenue or profit for the same ad spend because you feed the machine learning with more signals and more conversion value. You can have the fanciest conversion tracking setup with enhanced conversion, with Google Tag Gateway, whatever in place. But if your cookie opt-in rates are below average, all this conversion setup won't bring you much, right? Because at the end, it's always the cookie banner who determines if you will have conversions in your account or not. So yeah, consent mode, you all know it. It entered for Google Ads account as a quite technical and legal requirement, but it has evolved a lot into like a real performance and platform health feature. And today it's not just about being compliant to have a consent mode, but it's also about maintaining stable measurements, strong signals, and smart bidding. I'm giving over the word to Adrian, how we came up with the idea.
Thanks, Thomas. So we met Max during a CookieBot event in Prague. Max gave a presentation about something that not a lot of people talk about, and that is the optimization of the consent banner. So everybody will show and talk about how you can install consent mode with Tag Manager or WordPress, but a lot of people do not know that you can also optimize the consent banner. Now, you can do this with colors, but there are more hacks and tricks how you can optimize and stay compliant. So when we got this presentation, we were blown away and we're like, more people should know this. So that's how we came up with this webinar, so that you can increase your opt-in rates. Max will tell you how you can do that. For everybody who cannot watch the full presentation, because it will take around 30 or 40 minutes, we will upload it to Thomas' YouTube channel. So do not worry, you can watch it back. And I would say, Max, are you ready?
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Cool. Let's kick it off. Thank you so much. Thank you for the great introduction. And obviously, thanks for hosting me here. I'm really grateful for that opportunity. I actually met both Thomas and Adrian for the first time last year, and I definitely think these are two of the most advanced PPC gurus in the world out there, and they're also really nice people. So I'm really happy to be here. Just for our audience, so that you know who I am, I'm Max from DWC. DWC is an agency based on privacy tech and digital measurement. I'm usually saying I'm building cookie banners in most of my time. So I basically spent the last, I think, almost 8 years now implementing, maintaining, and improving consent banners. This is my daily business. And usually when we started with that in 2018, 2019, the only goal was, let's get compliant. It's the GDPR, you need to comply with it, get a consent banner, get it up and running and make sure that it works. But especially during the last couple of years, businesses started to understand consent banners as an opportunity to make something better than their competitors. This is basically the whole story that we as an agency sell. We are helping you to not only get compliant, but to also get consents and get data through that consent banner. This is basically what this presentation will be about. So let's kick it off. Generally speaking, I would say that most people here would agree with the phrase that you see here on the slide. Privacy is important. Everyone will agree with that. No one likes if their data is shared with third parties, with some shady providers. And obviously, we also see more and more privacy laws. For those of you who are working with different privacy regulations because you're managing clients from different countries or because your brand is available in different countries, you probably know maps that are similar to this. When we started with our agency, it was basically just GDPR and that's it. I think at this point, we are working with 20 plus different regulations that all have some kind of impact on consent banners. And especially the new regulations in the US or in Canada or in the Middle East are not making our life necessarily easier. So privacy is definitely a topic that evolves and everyone needs to work with it. Everyone needs to make sure that these things are working. Otherwise, you will get fined. And this is what most people are afraid of when they're implementing a consent banner. They're thinking about this big let's say, maximum fine in GDPR, which is like 4% of the global revenue, or the equivalent in the US, which is like 2.5 up to 7,500 euros per affected customer. And everyone's afraid, oh, if we do something wrong with our consent banner, we need to pay this significant amount of money. So we need to make sure that our consent banner is working. But what I'm telling you is, while all of that is true, and while you should make sure that your consent banner is working, I'm telling you that these fines are not your biggest issue, because most of all, they are usually not enforced immediately, to be honest, and they are usually not that high, as you can see it here on the screen. But I'm saying you have a problem that's probably much bigger when it comes to working with customer data on the website or mobile app. And this is that you will lose trust of your customers. And this is what drives down your consent rate. Both B2C and B2B buyers are not trusting your brand, they will not consent. And this is a clear trend that we as an agency as well see in the last couple of years for more or less all of our customers. Consent rates are declining, less people are likely to accept. And we think that a lot of people make the wrong choice based on that information. So why is trust important? As I mentioned, users are caring about their privacy. And why no one believes that, if I'm telling our customers that, it's actually the case. And there are several great researchers and studies from McKinsey or Adobe or Forbes that exactly prove that. And I like this one here especially because it highlights that 85% of people care much enough about their privacy that they are willing to say that the privacy policy of a company, so the way how they are handling their data, has an impact on their purchase decision. If this says privacy policy, by the way, this doesn't mean like the privacy policy page on your website. This means like the general information about how your company, how your brand handles data. And yeah, 85% of consumers think that this is important and that this is part of their purchase decision that they make. Also, for some out of these 85, 53% more or less, will say that they will not purchase directly from your brand if they are not trusting how you're handling their data. Meaning that if you go on a shady website where it's unclear what is happening with your credit card information, what is happening with your personal information that you put in there, people are not going to purchase something from you or signing up for your newsletter, signing up for your lead form, whatsoever. But they will not make a transaction, they will not convert on your website if they are not trusting you. And while we're talking about consent banners here, 67% of people in that specific survey said that they are more open to share data if they know and understand how you process them. Keep this one in mind for later during that webinar, because I will get back to that number probably 5 times in the next 30 minutes. This is basically the core message that you should take from this webinar. You need to convince either your customer or your marketing department or whoever about optimizing your consent banner. You can also give a negative touch to that and say, if you don't do it properly, people will consider competitors. And we've actually seen that in the past with different customers, with also different larger brands like Facebook or Twitter, where people are actually changing the platform, changing the brand they're working with if they don't trust the brand anymore, if they don't trust how their data is being handled there. And especially if you're targeting younger generations, we see the interest in privacy coming more and more also to the younger people in the world. But now also Gen Zs and millennials are starting to care about that. Yeah, and if you're thinking, oh, I don't need to worry about that because I'm just working in B2B, I'm sorry for you, but in B2B, it's even 56%. And if you think about that, it also makes sense. If you're introducing a new vendor to your company, a new platform, a new partner, whatsoever, and at the end, there's a privacy violation within that company you have introduced to your boss and to your colleagues, you don't want to be the one who brought them to the table. So B2B buyers tend to say even more that privacy is an important factor when they're making a decision. Companies are losing trust. And based on that, they are losing consents. And usually in these kind of talks or webinars, I always show this chart here, which is not looking nice, but which tries to explain this downward spiral of trust and data quality. We basically start here on the left side saying that at some point you will start to lose data because you implemented a consent banner for the first time, because your customers are getting more and more into the privacy area. But at the end, you will have some percent less data than you had last year. A lot of our customers reacted to that in the past by implementing things like dark patterns onto their consent banners and are trying to force or trick their users into accepting their consent banners. And I have to admit, as an agency, we also implemented these things for them. We also advised them what changes in the color of the accept button will lead to a higher consent rate, or how much their consent rate will go up if they remove the deny button from their cookie banner. And while this works in the short term, because you can trick users into doing something that they don't want, in the mid and long term, they will lose trust in your brand. And which is probably even worse, they will start implementing tools that hide these aggressive cookie banners. We already see more and more people installing browser extensions that auto opt out from certain consent management providers, or that generally hide cookie banners. And this is a result of that. If every brand would use a cookie banner, which is nice and clean and has clear options for accepting or declining, no one would need a browser extension that auto opts out, because everyone could make a decision on the website. So the downward spiral that you see here gets worse and worse the more aggressive your marketing tactics are, because less people are likely to accept, more people will implement browser extensions to block cookie banners, people will start losing trust in your brand, and that results in less data than you had before. So the typical cycle that we see with customers that we work with for the first time is they come to us with a 90% acceptance rate. They implement something that tries to trick the user into a certain scenario. For a couple of months, they're driving their consent rate to 98%, 97, 95%. And after 1 year, they're down at 82. This is like the typical downward spiral we're talking here. And sometimes our customers are telling us, yeah, this is not really an issue for us, because we are still able to track 80% of our visitors. We are still able to track 70, 60, 50%, whatsoever. Everyone has a different number in mind here. But they basically come to us and say, yeah, like data is not so important for us, because if we can observe 100% of our customers or just 50% of our customers, what's the difference? They behave the same. If we know that 50% of our customers will click on that button, we also know that probably on the other 50% also most people will click that button. So if you're mainly using Google Analytics, for example, I have to admit it's not so important to have a like 90% plus consent rate, because at the end, you can do also good decisions with 80% of available data. I'm personally thinking your decisions can get better the more people or the more data you can involve into that decision. But at the end, it works. It doesn't really make a difference if you have 70, 75, or 80% consent rate for your business. Since I'm here with Thomas and Adrian from the PPC space, I think most of the people here are running ads in the Google advertising network, on Meta, or wheresoever. And the story for advertising is completely different, because if you're running Google Ads, for example, every conversion that you can successfully report back to Google, back to the advertising platform, counts and improves the algorithm. So it's not only about reporting, it's not only about understanding which campaign performed the best compared to other campaigns, it's also about making your campaigns perform better. If your customers are clicking on your ad, landing on your website, navigating through your offerings, navigating through your products, at some point convert. And if you're successfully reporting that conversion back to Google, in this example, Google uses it to optimize the algorithm and optimize the ads that you're displaying to other customers. Google learns from the conversions that you send to Google. And in that case, it makes a huge difference if you have a 80% or 70% or even like 50, 40% consent rate, because the less data Google can feed into the algorithm, it can optimize your campaigns, and the worse the outcome of your campaigns might be. So we've learned that opt-ins are important. Data is important. We're still in the era of data-driven marketing. Don't get me wrong. The more data we can use, the more data we can feed into our algorithms, into our analytics tools, now also in our AI tools, the better the results at the end. But what we are proposing here is, while not ignoring this side of digital marketing, also consider the trust factor for your brand when it comes to digital business, and try to find the sweet spot between collecting as much and as high quality data as possible while respecting your customers' choices and while generating trust with your consent management systems. And we will now actually dive into the topic of how to optimize your consent banner. And this is very, very important if you consider that the consent banner is the first thing that you see on a website. So maybe asking the chat here while I'm drinking a little bit, how long do you think the average user takes to form an opinion about your website? In seconds, minutes, whatsoever. Maybe you can just write something into the chat.
Yeah, write it in the comments. We will check them. So only YouTube. The YouTube stream is right on time and LinkedIn is lagging a bit behind.
I see something here in the chat or in the comments. I had similar presentations in the last year a couple of times on similar events, and I heard everything besides like 0.1 seconds. In reality, 0.05 seconds. This is the psychological time in which the brain creates the first impression, the first opinion about your website. And usually within that 0.05 seconds, they will see a consent banner. This is, especially on mobile devices, the first thing that you see. And if you don't have a consent banner at all, or if you have a consent banner which is not looking nice, users will recognize that. And this directly accounts into the trust factor that I was talking about earlier. So optimizing the cookie banner makes sense. We have a lot of customers who are spending thousands of euros on optimizing the last little pixel of their landing page, but completely ignoring the fact that 70% of the screen is occupied by a big content modal. So let's make that better, and let's think about how we can make these ugly banners a little bit better. And for that, we always think about 3 core values. They are transparency, value, and design consistency. Transparency meaning users can understand what you're doing. Users understand the text in your consent banner. Users understand what they're consenting to. You're speaking their language. You're using words that they can understand. Keep in mind that your users are not technical marketeers. Your users are average consumers or B2B buyers and are usually not very much into the topic of cookies and data collection. Value means explain the benefit that your user gets if they're accepting. And there is a value in a lot of things that people accept. Thinking about promoting or showing personalized offers, showing better product recommendations, even mentioning something like, with your consent, we can improve the website to make it more user-friendly. This is a value that you get in exchange for your consent. If I'm just asking you to give me 5 euros, you will not accept that. But if I'm offering you something in exchange, it can make sense for most of the people. And last but not least, it's design consistency. So make sure that the consent banner looks and feels like a natural part of the user journey. Think about that it takes up 70% of the space, probably. So try to make it feel as a natural part of the user journey. One of the examples I usually show here is the one from About You. And I know this might be a little bit small, so feel free to open the aboutyou.com in your own browser in a different tab and check it out yourself. About You makes several things pretty well, at least in our opinion. First of all, they have configured their cookie banner in a way that it allows the visitor to see what's going on the website. As you see here on the desktop experience, I'm able to see the main hero section with a large image with the 3 options and this little "we have them all" widget on the right side. So I'm actually able to see the web shop I'm currently opening. Also, they are using a text and wording that people can understand. And while there's probably still room for improvement, they're already doing that pretty good. Their headline says, "It's about you, your personalized shop," which directly translates into, if I accept here, I get an experience which is personalized to myself, which is created just for me. This highlights the value, and I can understand that. Also, they're respecting the design consistency part that I just mentioned. They're implementing their logo in the consent banner. They are using their own colors, their own font styles. And this is like such a simple thing to do, but it has a huge impact on people clicking on the accept button. And last but not least, which is one of the most common issues that we see for new customers that we consult in the CMP area, they are offering their banner in different languages, and they are making sure that the banner language aligns with the language of their customer. If you're using a consent tool that can support different languages, use that. Create your text, translate your text in different languages, and offer them to your customers. Because if your customers are not able to understand what you want from them, they will simply not consent. If you can automatically map the consent banner language to the browser language or to the language of the page, both is completely fine. Definitely do that, and not just show a general banner in English or in your local language and don't offer an alternative to that. Another example is this one here, which I personally really like it, which is like one of our favorites in our agency. This is Thomann, shop for musical equipment. They're making like a little joke with a grandma baking cookies. This is about cookies. Everything is served with love. But at the end, check the text. They're saying, with our cookies, we would like to offer you the best shopping experience, the best possible value, and everything else that you might want, suitable offers whatsoever. So they are clearly highlighting the value in words that everyone can understand. They could also write, we want to use cookies for statistical and marketing purposes, please accept, or with your acceptance, we will share your data with Google and 20 other vendors whatsoever. But they're saying, we want to create an experience which is better for you. Give us your consent, and then we're able to do that. So they're using, again, comprehensive, understandable text and clear and simple communication. We usually end up in these discussions with our customers that we say, your consent banner text is too complex. No one can understand that. And basically our main stakeholder on the customer side will come to us and say, yeah, but I got this text from my legal team. What should I do? It's not a legal requirement that the law needs to write your cookie banner text. Yes, it needs to include some important informations. Yes, it needs to describe what you're doing on the website. But you can also describe that in your own words, in simple and understandable words. You don't need to use legal jargon for that. Or at least try to avoid that on the first layer. So if users are clicking on the little settings button or more information or however that is called in your system, you can still do that. You can still provide all the legally relevant or interesting information, all the technical details, but at least in the first section, in the first layer, try to keep it straightforward and simple. Nevertheless, the second layer is also important, not as important as the first layer, because we know that around 97 to 98% of the people on most of our customers' websites tend to just accept or deny everything. So they are usually not entering that interface. But for those 2 or 3% of users who do, you can work with the same 3 core values as in the first layer. Use comprehensive and understandable text, explain what you're doing, try to avoid legal jargon where it's possible, and give the user granular choice options. This is something that, unfortunately, a lot of consent tools are not making very good, because in the GDPR, first of all, you need to provide granularity. You need to actually provide granular options. And while at the moment, in most of the countries, it's completely fine to work with just categories. So just saying marketing, yes, analytics, yes, functional, no, whatsoever. While this is legally fine, I would always recommend to implement an option where users can manage the consent on a vendor level, and actually service level. Not because a lot of users are actually doing that. Don't get me wrong, no one in the real world is doing that. But because you're creating granular options, the user feels more respected and is more likely to accept at least some of your categories in GDPR countries. So why not provide it in the cookie banner model where your users can feel respected? So the best CMP, the best cookie banner is nothing when it's not working as expected. And previously we already learned that more and more people are likely to implement browser extensions that will block tracking or that will tell you how many trackers are on the website. I think Apple's Safari has that actually now implemented by default. So Safari has like this little icon next to the URL bar that tells you how many trackers are on the website. So users are beginning to notice if your consent banner doesn't work as expected. And if you take a look at the screenshot, and I'm sorry if it's a little bit small again, but basically on the left side of the screenshot, I see a cookie banner where marketing and analytics is deactivated, while on the right side, my Ghostery extension tells me that I have several advertising and analytics pixels running at the site at the moment. So this is clearly not fine. It's the website is clearly not behaving as I configured it to behave. And if I see that, I don't see a good reason to trust that brand handling my data. And I can remember this one letter that one of our clients got from a customer, which like stuck in the back of my head for a couple of years now, because he basically said this was an e-commerce client. They sold very expensive products on their site. And the letter basically says, if I can even trust you with handling my IP address, this was like for IP address tracking and stuff like that. If I cannot even trust you with handling my IP address, how can I trust you handling my credit card data that you request from me during checkout? Handling my IP address is much, much simpler, and respecting that is much, much simpler. And this is maybe something that more people are thinking in a specific way like that. So yeah, you see the marketing and analytics services being used without valid user consent. Also, think about that you don't only have one option to ask for consent. Everyone knows the big consent banner in the beginning. If you ask me, these consent banners won't go in the next couple of years. I see a potential future where there will be better technical solutions for it. I totally get the point of this like device-controlled consent type. I know that the European government is currently working on some better solutions for that. I would bet money that in the next 5 to 10 years, we will still work with the regular cookie banners. It's not really necessarily to ask the user for consent once and then never ask him again. So what we always recommend is to also introduce the so-called contextual consent, meaning ask users for approval in a situation, in a specific scenario, in the user journey where it makes sense. And this is an example from a couple of our e-commerce clients who have built it in a similar way. If the user consents in the cookie banner, they are tracking their behavioral data for product recommendations. They are tracking different products that they see on the website, and they will recommend products that will match the previously visited products. It's a typical e-commerce thing. But what we did is, when no consent was given in the first initial banner, we added like a little overlay or like a little pop-up, little info box next to the product recommendations saying, we could provide you better recommendations here if you are likely to share a little bit of your behavioral information with us. If you allow us to set a cookie on your device and to actually collect information about what products you liked previously, then we are able to provide better recommendations. Quite a significant amount of users who then change their preference through this contextual modal. So from the users who not agreed in the first place, a huge percentage then agreed in the second place in that contextual modal. And if you're building these contextual modals, the same core principles also apply here. If you compare these two examples, you can see clearly that there's one which highlights the value that you get out of it better than the other. And you can do that in your contextual modals as well. I think most of the major consent tools, and obviously especially User-Centrics and Cookiebot, also support customizing this auto modal that is automatically added on top of some things. Yeah, same thing here. Avoid complexity, keep it simple. These are two examples from two customers, and you can clearly see who has the more expensive legal department, because on the left side, there's basically a huge text explaining every little technical and legal detail, highlighting specific laws and regulations, while the banner on the right side just says, here could be a YouTube video, you could see more information about the product, and all other information is still available in the privacy policy. So The 0.001% of users who are actually interested in that can still find it very easily here, but the 99.99% of users can make a quick decision just based on that information. So this contextual consent part is very crucial if you're trying to drive up your overall consent rate. The example with YouTube I just shared actually leads to a consent rate which is significantly higher than the consent rate in the first banner. For YouTube, we actually done like a research with 20, 30 of our customers and compared their consent rate for functional DPS, meaning for services that you need to opt in for, but that will provide you some kind of value. The average was around 80%. And then we checked it, or we compared it with the consent rate through contextual consent, meaning that if we show a user the YouTube consent modal in a place where he already requested the video, around 98% then accepted the YouTube consent and allowed the video to be displayed. For the missing 2%, I think you're not able to do anything, I'm honest. These are just users who are not interested and who don't want to share their data. And that's fine. As you see, most people are willing to share some information if they get a certain value to it. Also, the same that I just explained for the second layer with the categories and the services, again, same thing applies here. Provide the user granular options. If you're just offering all or nothing solution, more people are likely to not accept than if you're offering them 1, 2, 3, 4 different options to choose from. Yes, not all users will accept everything, but we know this example from typical newsletter registration forms. If you ask the user for, hey, give me your email and we will send you marketing information, to be honest, no one wants to consent to that. But if you're splitting that up and say, can we send you an email when the item is back in stock, or when a new color is available, or when we have a discount of more than X% for you whatsoever, then you still open a communication channel with that customer. You're maybe not able to send them all marketing stuff you want, but you are able to actually send them information and to create additional touch points, which is obviously much better than not doing anything and not sending them anything. So same principles also apply here. And yeah, to be honest, that's it from my side. If you're asking me to sum it up in like one simple sentence, I would say consider trust as an important factor when optimizing your consent banner. You can try a lot of things, but keep in mind that your users are not stupid. And if you're trying to trick them into a specific direction, it won't work in the medium and long term. We tried it, it didn't work. The better or more sustainable way is to actually explaining value using transparent words and making sure that the cookie banner experience feels natural. And yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Max. That was awesome. I think a lot of people really can implement these things and improve their consent rate, and they can test. If you're using a tool like Cookiebot User-Centrics, the sponsor of this webinar, then you can also check if your rate becomes higher. So that's really interesting. I have not seen any questions until now, but if you have questions, feel free to ask them to Max. Thomas, did you see questions?
I only saw one question, this one from Christopher, but I did not understand it. So Christopher, if you're still there, if you could maybe rephrase it so that we can understand it. But yeah, I don't know, Max, if you understand something there, but I for me, it's not 100% clear where the question is heading towards. But yeah, any other questions, please let them know in the comments, because you can ask Max. He's really a data pro for data strategy. So now it's your time. Don't waste this time.
And I don't buy it. And there aren't any stupid questions. So
there are no stupid questions at all. Well, let's see if there is also on YouTube. I didn't see any specific question. No.
And if you are watching this back, you could also leave a comment with a question, and we can check in a couple of days. Feel free to also ask the question, because I know a lot of people will watch it back.
Yeah, usually 60-70% watches it back. Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, if you watch it back, just leave a comment, YouTube or LinkedIn, and we're gonna look at it.
So yeah, for me this month, I'm going to do the experiment with my own cookie banner that I have on my website. I'm gonna change the colors and the text, and then I will show the results on LinkedIn or on YouTube later, what the
Nice.
results were. I already have some interesting ideas of what I could do. I was thinking maybe what would happen if I would add my own head into the banner, for example. I was just curious, as the logo,
Yeah.
it's like too personal. Would that be like? That's one thing I want to test.
Yeah.
I'm sure that would work. You should definitely try that.
So yeah, and then I need to change the colors. I will do that, and then have a look at the text. Maybe I should change one thing at a time, but I want to see like if I change everything, maybe I will see a really, yeah, steep increase. So I'm going to test it like this month.
Yeah. And just like changing the accept button to continue, for example, that's also some psychological change or optimization that you could do and see how it works. Because I think that one has a big uplift because users enter and they say continue, but yeah.
Yeah, this is very important. Like also in terms of like the psychological wording. If I'm saying you, Thomas, do you accept everything?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
accept all. I'm like, no. At least one thing I don't want to accept.
Yeah, but like saying, do you want to continue? Do you want to get the best experience? Or at least are you accepting it? Are you okay with it? Like that's a more friendly phrasing instead of
exactly.
agree to everything.
Say yes to everything. That's always too much. Yeah, but these little tweaks at your content banner, they make so much difference, especially if you're a big company running tons of Google Ads budget, for example. These little things make so much impact. And this is something that I think most of us kind of forgot, because for us it was just a hassle to set up cookie banners when the Digital Market Act came out, and then we set and forget it. But now I think it comes back as a really huge performance lever, where at the end it's the start where your first conversion comes in for your website. So it's that important to really look at it in optimized tools.
And it's interesting because like the whole view on that changed, right? So in 2018, 2019, 2020, we just had customers with no content banners coming to us and saying, I need something real fast. Like, I don't want to get fined. Build something. I need to get compliant. This was like their only goal. And more or less all customers that we got during the last couple of years, at least in Europe, already had consent banners. And they said, we have a problem because we have a consent banner, but no consents. Or we have a consent banner which is not doing what it's supposed to do, like what I showed with the example. It shows that it's blocking something, but it's clearly not blocking something. So the whole focus shifted a bit into, let's not try to get something, let's try to get the best thing, let's try to get the best out of it. And that's like, for us as an agency, that's very exciting.
Yeah, that's good. There is one question. I don't know if this is somehow relevant for you, Max, because I'm not so deep into tech and AI.
To be honest, I'm not quite sure if this belongs here. I'm also sorry, but I won't be able to answer this one.
Yeah, these guys only relevant questions.
I have to say.
For this one, let's keep it for constant opt-in rate optimization. Yeah, please. Yeah, but I think it looks like it was very clear to our audience. And yeah, if there are no more questions, I think there is no need to expand this webinar. Thanks everyone who joined, all the comments that we saw on YouTube and LinkedIn. So thanks a lot for that. And obviously, thanks a lot for Max for joining us, giving us this masterclass. Really, really nice. Thanks a lot for joining.
Thank you for hosting me here. And thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining, everybody. And thanks for the sponsoring of this webinar, User Centrics.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.